All right, welcome back to the listener's commentary on the book of Genesis. In this recording, we're going to be looking at Genesis chapter 1 down through chapter 2, verse 3. This is one of those places where the chapter break is a bit unfortunate because it's quite obvious that the narrative flow goes beyond the chapter break down to the first few verses of Genesis chapter 2. So Genesis 1:1 through chapter 2, verse 3. And the book of Genesis, as is well known, opens at the very beginning of our world. In the beginning. That's literally how it opens. And so that's where we start the story of the Bible, is there, in the beginning. And Genesis chapter 1 answers two big questions for us, questions that humans of all kinds and all different times and places have routinely asked. Those questions are this: where did the world and everything in it come from? And what does it mean to be human? And the opening narrative here in the book of Genesis answers those questions, and in that way is very foundational to having a biblical worldview. So let's begin in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, where it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was formless and desolate emptiness." Notice those two phrases, formless and empty. That's important for the story to follow and the nature of the creation account. I'll explain that here in just a moment. But just for now, note that the earth was formless and empty, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. And so come back to that phrase, formless and empty. And what follows then, verse 2, in the creation account, is an account of how God formed and filled the heavens and the earth. So they were formless and empty, and God's going to form them and fill them. And that's really what you get in this creation account. And recognizing that helps us then see how this creation account is actually structured. And so as we continue working down through Genesis chapter 1, the first 3 days of creation are about forming things, and the next 3 days are about filling them. And so the days are parallel. Days 1 and 4 go together. Days 2 and 5 go together. Days 3 and 6 go together. And it's all about forming and filling. So days 1 and 4, well, they're about light, separating it from darkness, day 1, and then filling the heavens with the great lights, day 4. Days 2 and 5 go together, and they're about the sky and the waters. And so day 2 is about forming them, and then day 5 is about filling them. And then days 3 and 6 go together about the earth, forming it, day 3, and filling it, day 6. That's the basic structure of this opening narrative creation account here. And all of this intends to answer one of the most pressing human questions: where did everything come from and how did it get this way? This is an important question that the folks in the ancient Near East, from cultures all around ancient Israel, in places of Mesopotamia and Syria and all that, folks from the ancient Near East, they had stories about how things got the way they are, how everything got here, and how it came to be the way it was. And we too, in our culture, we have popular cultural narratives about where everything came from and how it got the way it is. And what this narrative does is answer that question and offers its take on where did everything come from. So as you read Genesis 1, keep in mind that it's written to subvert those ancient stories as well as our stories and tell us that everything came from one creator God. He brought it all into existence and ordered it to work in a certain way. And it exists and functions the way it does because God created it so. All right, that's the key lesson or message out of this narrative section. So, days 1 through 3, they are forming days. Let's look at days 1 through 3. Day 1, this is all about forming light, forming day and night. So it says in verse 3, "Then God said, let there be light. And there was light. God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. So, day one, forming light and separating light and darkness and naming them day and night. Day two is about forming the sky. And so, verse 6, then God said, let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. That's unclear and confusing, but it's explained in the next verse. God made the expanse and separated the waters that were below the expanse from the waters that were above the expanse, and it was so. And God called the expanse heaven, or we would use the word in modern English, sky. So there's sky between the waters above and the waters below. And there was evening and there was morning a second day. So that's day two, forming the sky. And then day three is about forming the dry land and the seas. And he picks up with this water idea from the day two and explains what the waters below were called. So then God said, let the waters below the heavens be gathered into one place, and let the dry land appear. And so all those waters that were separated from the waters above on day two now are gathered into one place so that dry land can appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. And then God said, let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed and fruit on the earth, bearing fruit according to their kind, with seed in them. And it was so. And the earth produced vegetation, plants yielding seed according to their kind, trees bearing fruit with the seed in them according to their kind. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, day three. And so we now have, after days 1 through 3, this formless, whatever it means by the everything was formless. Well, now it's been formed into day and night, and waters above, waters below, right? Seas on the earth, and dry land with vegetation. Then days 4 through 6 are filling days. So day 4 is all about filling the sky, the heavens, with the lights. And so verse 14 says, then God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, picking up where he left off on day 1. And they will serve as signs and for seasons and for days and for years. They're going to mark the changing of the calendar and the changing of the days and the weeks and all of that. They shall serve as lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth. And it was so. God actually made 2 great lights, the greater light to govern the day and the lesser light to govern the night. He made the stars also. And God placed them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth and to govern the day and the night and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, a 4th day. So day 4 comes back to day 1 and couples with that and explains how God filled the heavens with stars and sun and moon and all of that to mark the seasons and to govern the day and the night. Day 5 then parallels day 2, and it's about the filling of the seas, since it was about separating the waters on day 5 and filling the seas and the sky with creatures, because he separated those 2 things out, right? And so verse 20, then God said, let the waters teem with swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly in above the earth in the open expanse of the heavens, in the sky. And God created the great sea creatures and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarmed according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And so we've filled the sky and we've filled the seas. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth. And there was evening and there was morning, a 5th day. So now we've filled the skies and the seas, and what remains is the filling of the dry land, the earth. And so day 6, paralleling day 3, is all about the filling of the earth, the dry land with creatures. And it comes to us in 2 parts. All the animals of the earth is part 1, and then the special creation of human beings, that's part 2. And so verse 24 of Genesis 1, then God said, let the earth produce living creatures according to their kind, livestock and crawling things, and animals of the earth according to their kind. And it was so. And God made the animals of the earth according to their kind, and the livestock according to their kind, and everything that crawls on the ground according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And so God made all the creatures that fill the earth, the crawling things, the domesticated livestock, the wild animals, all the animals of the earth, and the dry land is filled with animals according to their kind. Then we get the second part of the filling of the earth, and it's the special creation of human beings. It's the culmination, really, of creation. And so, verse 26, we read, very important and fairly well known. If you're familiar with the book of Genesis or your Bible, you know this verse, and it's terribly important for understanding what it means to be human. Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every crawling thing that crawls on the earth. And so God is going to make human beings in his likeness as his image. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Notice the emphasis. We've heard it now multiple times. We're going to make mankind in our image, in our likeness. Then we get, he created him in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Genesis wants to make sure we hear this idea of human beings, male and female, both being the image of God. And God blessed them. And God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky and over every living thing that moves on the earth. And then God said, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that's on the surface of all the earth, and every tree which has fruit yielding seed, it shall be food for you. And to every animal of the earth, and to every bird of the sky, and to everything that moves on the earth which has life, I have given every green plant for food. And it was so. And God saw all that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the 6th day. Now let's just pause a little bit and reflect on what's said here about the creation of human beings. As I noted, this is the culmination of the creation account, and it marks the significance of human beings as distinct and unique. And this account answers then another pressing question that humans in all places and times have asked. What does it mean to be human? And this account provides the essential biblical answer to that question. Like, it's crucial to understand this, to understand the entire biblical story, and to understand who you are and what it means to be human. And the basic answer given here is humans are the image of God. In the ancient world, images of gods were set up in temples, and it represented the God in his temple and to the people of that place. Also, in the ancient Near East, kings would set up images of themselves all throughout their realm so that everyone knew there's the king and he's in charge. Well, creation is God's kingdom and God's temple. And we human beings are the image. We're the image that God has set up in his kingdom and in his temple to represent him on earth. And therefore, as one scholar said, he described human beings as the representative presence of God on earth. That's us. That's who we are. So we humans exist to embody and to represent the Creator here in his realm on earth. That's the fundamental point this moment in the creation account intends to make. And this task of being God's image is not some alien task that's foreign to our nature or our identity. We're made in God's image, or we're made as God's image, in his likeness, which that's kinship language. That's the idea of the language. To be made in his image and likeness, when it's talking about living creatures, means it's kinship language. We represent God as his kin, as his sons and daughters. We're his offspring. And so the human identity is representative. We're the image of God, but we do so as his offspring, as his sons and daughters. That's our identity. And our vocation, according to what's said here, is to rule over, that is, to govern all of the creatures on the earth on the Creator's behalf. So, as his image, we have a vocation, we have a task we're called to do. Being that we are his image, as his sons and daughters, our task is extend the Creator's reign and rule throughout the world. So we're to embody his ways and his wisdom, extending his kingship, his wisdom, his reign, his rule over all the world. And also notice here about human beings that God blesses humans and commands them to reproduce and fill the earth. And then it says, subdue it. And the idea of that word subdue could be easily misunderstood, but the idea is to cultivate and bring order, bring good out of the earth, just like the Creator did. That's the idea of subdue. It's not like we're supposed to just dominate it, but we're to cultivate it and bring order and good out of it. That's our vocation. That's our calling as the image of God. And so at the end of day 6, God has filled the entire earth. He's formed it all, filled it all. He's placed his representative presence on the earth in the form of human beings who are supposed to extend his reign and rule throughout the world. And so as the creation story, the initial creation story in Genesis wraps up, we cross that chapter divide into chapter 2, and we get the rest of the story that says, and so the heavens and the earth were completed, and all their heavenly lights. By the 7th day, God completed his work which he had done, and he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had done. And God blessed the 7th day and sanctified it. That means set it apart, made it holy, because on it he rested from all his work which he had created and which he had made. Now, scholars of the Old Testament and the ancient Near East point out that this is really kingly language and temple language, just as the idea of placing the image in a temple or throughout your realm was kingly and temple language. Well, the same is true here with the Creator resting on the earth. It presents God as a king resting from all his work of bringing order to his realm, to his kingdom. And it envisions God as taking his seat on his throne in his temple and resting, because now his work of creation is done. And so the idea is, when it says that God rested, the idea is that God has completed his work of creating and now rests as king over all that he has made. Now, this story is foundational for the entire narrative of the Bible, for the entire story of the Bible, and it's foundational for a biblical worldview. If you want to view this world and your place in it from a biblical vantage point, you have to make sure you think about where everything came from and what it means to be human, the way Genesis describes it here in the creation account. The earth, in other words, was not the result of a cosmic battle between various gods and goddesses. That's an ancient story of where the world came from. That would be a story that's subverted by this, where there was some sort of cosmic battle and all things came to be out of that cosmic battle. Numerous ancient myths told stories like that. Or a more modern story, the earth didn't just pop into existence on its own, where things just organize themselves according to self-organizational principles. A modern story of how everything came to be the way it is. No, this story says that there is an all-powerful creator God who brought everything into existence and gave it order and gave it purpose, right? He formed it and filled it to give purpose and life to all the creatures of the earth. And humans, according to this story, stand as distinct. They're in a unique place among all of creation. Human beings are creatures of the living God, but we alone of all the creatures are the image of God and have as our task and our responsibility to rule over and bring order to creation according to the Creator's will and in partnership with Him. That's what it means to be human. And that's the story that was just told to us in Genesis 1 through 2, 3. And if we're going to have a biblical worldview, we have to think about ourselves and this world that way. Humans are unique. Humans are different from animals. Humans have a different status. Humans have a unique dignity, and humans also have a greater weight of responsibility and accountability because of that unique status. We are the image of God, and we are supposed to, in partnership with the Creator, reign over this world according to His wisdom, according to His goodness, and according to His ways. That's ultimately what it means to be human. And all of that is the foundational message of Genesis chapter 1. That's the primary thing it's trying to communicate. One other important theme to notice that is sort of like the refrain of this creation account is that when God created everything this way and placed humans in this role, it was good. In fact, at the culmination of it all, after the creation of humans, and now they're installed in their place as the image of God, it's very good. And we can't miss that refrain. The biblical story doesn't start with everything being bad. The biblical story starts with everything being good. And this world and human beings were given this distinct honor of being the Creator's good handiwork for His honor, for His purposes, and for His glory. So don't miss that refrain. It was good, and it was very good when humans were created and put into this role. Now, things will take a turn for the worse in later chapters, but at the beginning, and where the story starts, is with all things were created by God and were very good. And thus God rested from all His created works as king over all He had made. All right, thanks for tuning into this session of the Listener's Commentary on the Old Testament. The Listener's Commentary is a listener-supported, crowd-funded Bible teaching ministry that's made possible by the generosity of dozens and dozens of people just like you. So thanks a ton for your support. Thanks for making this ministry possible. God is using the Listener's Commentary through your generosity to reach people all around the world, people who are digging in, studying the Bible, pastors who are using it to prepare for sermons, and all of it is helping people learn and live the Bible. So thanks a ton for your support. And if you want to join the team of supporters, easiest way to do that is to go to listenerscommentary.com. Click the Give button. It'll redirect you to a page, my page with World Family Mission, a registered nonprofit, where you can put in a dollar amount. If you want to make it monthly, click a little box that says Make This Monthly, and all those proceeds will come this way to help this ministry continue to grow and reach more people with the teaching of the Bible.